Hi guys, Miles here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about medications, specifically the ones that I take for my schizoaffective disorder. When people normally ask me about my diagnosis, I'll usually just say schizophrenia. However, my full diagnosis is schizoaffective disorder. This is just basically a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. So to boil that down, this means that I experience schizophrenia symptoms like paranoia, hallucinations, delusions, and ideas of grandeur. It also means that I experience mood swings, such as mania and depression, that come with bipolar disorder. Today, I'm going to be sharing what medications I take, why I take them, and how I take them. Starting off with the one I've been on longest and ending with the newest. So first off, we have Seroquel or quetiapine. This is the medication that I have been on the longest, and I started this way back when I was a teenager. Seroquel is basically an atypical antipsychotic medication used to treat serious mental health conditions such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. It functions by balancing out levels of dopamine and serotonin in the brain. Now, this was a medication that I started taking when I was pretty freshly diagnosed and had just been given my diagnosis of schizophrenia, which was later broadened to schizoaffective disorder, but at the time it was just schizophrenia, and had just moved out of the childhood schizophrenia range in that I was not really a child anymore, I was a teenager. So I was having symptoms and experiencing symptoms of childhood schizophrenia, but I wasn't actually diagnosed until I was a little bit older. It took us quite a journey to get to that diagnosis, but when we did officially arrive, Seroquel was one of the medications I ended up trying after going through the ones that were approved for my age group. Now at the time that was not the case. It was known to cause people my age to feel as if they wanted to end their lives, and that was a huge risk. However, my psychiatrist at the time realized we've gone through so many, they're not working, let's go ahead and start with the Seroquel. I both love and hate this about the time because it's one of the medications that I still can't manage to get off of, even if I would like to make changes now these days. But that aside, it was the only medication out of a handful of atypical antipsychotic medications that actually showed some promise. Not only that, but it helped with sleep because it has a heavily sedating effect, so it was cutting down a little bit on my hallucinations and it was assisting me in falling asleep at night. Despite not fully fixing my problems and me still being incredibly paranoid and hallucinating and having really horrible psychotic breaks, it did in some small way kind of affect the frequency of that. So even though it wasn't really doing exactly what we wanted it to do, it was doing enough that we stayed on it, and I am still on it to this day. I like to call it kind of a springboard medication because while I am on it, it kind of just acts as a step up for the other medications that I'm on, and in turn, because it is heavily sedating, even though it doesn't have as much of that effect on me anymore, it kind of pairs with other medications to give that sleepy effect so that I can actually sleep through the night. I take about 400 milligrams. I was once at about 800 and there were just way too many side effects. So now it's kind of gone back to about 400 milligrams and I take that once a day at bedtime. Next is a medication that I started around 4 years ago called Caplyta. This one was initially a game changer for me as it stabilized my mood swings, it brought a lot more calm and acceptance to my daily life, and I actually even remarked to a family member, maybe this is what normal feels like. It cut down on a lot of my auditory and tactile hallucinations, and I feel like episodes of paranoia were a lot fewer and far between when I started Caplyta. Now, unfortunately, given time, I have seen these effects sort of wane, if you will, which can happen with a lot of medications. I truly do believe there is no cure, but there are medications that help you get closer to living everyday life where you're not as affected by your symptoms. Caplyta, also known by this name, which I will not try to pronounce, is also an atypical antipsychotic medication used to treat schizophrenia and can also be used to treat major depressive disorder or depressive episodes in those with bipolar disorder. The cool thing about Caplyta is that it is a newer antipsychotic, referred to as a second-generation antipsychotic, and that usually means that there is a lot less adverse effects or motor-related side effects in the long term than you would see on older antipsychotics like Seroquel. The only bad thing about this medication is it only comes basically in one dosage, and that's 42 milligrams, and it comes in a capsule. So for me, I take one 42 milligram capsule once a day at bedtime, pretty much right along with my Seroquel and with the last med that I'm going to mention. Coming to the end of this list, I want to mention that I did recently come down from taking 5 different medications back down to 3, and the 2 that I was taking basically were trials that did the opposite of what they were supposed to do. So I am used to taking more than 3 meds, but for right now, these have been kind of the tried and true meds that I take on the daily that I'm not looking to change. Speaking of the 3rd medication on today's list, that would be Xanax. And I've been taking Xanax every day for almost a year now. Since moving out, my sleep-related problems have kind of steadily gotten worse, and the anxiety surrounding going to bed and getting ready for bed and trying to fall asleep really mounted and became so bad that despite taking Seroquel and Caplyta, both of which can cause sedation, I was not able to fall asleep. So my psychiatrist prescribed Xanax as a medication to help with that anxiety, and it also has the added benefit of helping you be calm enough and quiet enough to fall asleep. Xanax is basically the known brand name for the drug alprazolam. It's really powerful and very fast acting and is known as a benzodiazepine. It's mostly used to treat panic disorder and anxiety, and this is mainly because it has a very calming effect on your brain. For me, I was taking a full 2 milligram pill, which was not advised long term. I don't think it's completely advised to take Xanax long term anyway, but for me, it's been one of the only things that's worked, even though I've been on other medications for anxiety and for sleep issues. That being said, I'm taking a relatively low dosage now, which is just a half of a 1 milligram pill, again, once a day at bedtime with the rest of my meds. My care team actually controls the rate at which I receive this medication due to its addictive nature, so they dispense it to me on a weekly basis, and then I have it on hand for the week. This is a medication that I do have to warn people against using. I am using it on an everyday basis, but I do not in any way promote that, prescribe that, advise that, any of that, because 1, it is highly addictive, 2, it is incredibly hard to detox off of, and 3, I recently learned that inpatient treatment facilities will not let you be on this medication while you stay with them. No, these are elective places you go, not places you end up when you're Baker acted. Not hospitals, but treatment places. So again, it's not one that I'm putting on this list like, oh, here's something that helps me and here's something you should try too. I do not advise that. It's just what works for me and what my team has decided is okay for the time being, but I don't even know if I'll be able to continue being on it long term. It's just what's working for now. Now that you know all of the medications I'm currently taking, I thought I'd explain to you how I take them. And you might say, well, Miles, duh, you take your pills, you get some water, you put your pills in your mouth, you swallow them, swallow the water, and it's one and done. I wish, I really do wish, because I see other people do that and I'm like, oh, it looks so simple and so easy and it takes 5 seconds, but no, I'm gonna share a secret with you. I do not swallow pills. Now, the reasoning behind that goes back a very, very, very long time to a traumatic experience that I had while staying at a behavioral center, which I may talk about in a video of its own. I've considered going back and discussing that because it was very interesting. But as a kid going through what I did, it really affected me in the sense that I could not, after that point, even though I had tried to up until that point, swallow pills on my own. So for those wondering, yes, I crush all my medications. For those who've really been paying attention, they're like, but Miles, what about the Caplyta? What about the capsule? Ha 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 ha. What you might not know, even though it's not always advised, my psychiatrist has basically signed off of it saying that I can open the capsule and empty the contents. So primarily what I'll do when I start putting my medications together for the night is I will get out my handy dandy pill crusher, which has been an absolute godsend, and I'll open that up and I'll put my Seroquel and my Xanax into the pill crusher and grind them about 4 or 5 times. You kind of spin it up and spin it back down and shake it around and repeat that process until you get kind of a fine dust. And then I will get out a small applesauce cup and I will open the Caplyta capsule and empty the contents into that cup. Then I will add the crushed pills to the Caplyta in the cup, and then grab my favorite chocolate pudding. Now, some people take their medications when crushed in applesauce. I did that for many years, and I can tell you pudding is like 100% better, because not only do you not taste the pills as much, but you can't really see them once you crush them, get them into a powder, and then put them in the pudding. If you mix the pudding really, really well, it's very hard to tell that there are pills inside of it. Now, I have been doing this the majority of my life, so maybe I'm just a little bit biased, and after time, maybe I don't sense them as much. But between taking the two, I now prefer to take the medication in pudding versus applesauce, and when given the chance, even yogurt is better. So yogurt or pudding, either of them works. The great thing about chocolate, though, is it kind of cleanses your palate a bit, so I feel like once you're done taking the pudding, you don't need to take anything else to get the taste out of your mouth. When I was taking applesauce, I would actually have a piece of chocolate after the applesauce, so then I streamlined that process and I'm like, no, let's just go straight to pudding. When finished, it looks a little bit like this, and then it's about 3 spoonfuls and you're done. For anybody asking, I do use like a full pudding cup of pudding, and I'll show that here again for anybody who missed it. So it's a fair size, and usually, at least with the meds that I am taking, there's enough dust to get lost in about 3 spoonfuls of this pudding. And that's that. Those are the medications that I am currently on after basically detoxing off of 2 others that did not work for me. And these are the ones that have kind of been with me more or less for the long haul. Has anybody else tried any of these medications? If so, I would love to hear your experiences down in the comments. All right, that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you all, and stay awesome. Bye.